Welcome to a special NHL Draft Lottery edition of the Dine Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Tonight we're going to be breaking down a very interesting evening in the NHL. We just had a lottery draft where a play-in team is actually going to get the right to pick number one overall. So you just held the NHL Draft Lottery, and we still don't know who's going to have the number one pick. So we've got Darcy Whyte from the Ridin Pine Show Podcast coming in to join us. And as a massive Senators fan, he is not in the greatest of moods after watching what just transpired. And, we are taping this on Friday night. So this is a fairly instantaneous take on what just happened there. So who knows what might get released between now and when this episode actually airs. But yeah, definitely interesting times. And, we've even just been scrolling through some of the comments, and whether it's on Twitter or on, Instagram or wherever, there have been some very, very upset fan bases. And at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And the instantaneous takes, and you've even had some NHL and former NHL execs come out and sort of lambast the league as to this not being a great look for them, and maybe not being the most well thought out process for the NHL Draft Lottery. So we break down all of that, as well as looking ahead to the actual draft itself, where we could possibly see some of these players going, how high they might go, some dark horse picks, who's got the most upside, all sorts of stuff there. So if you're a fan of hockey, make sure you check this episode out, and thanks for tuning in. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dine Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Joining me today is a slightly depressed Darcy Whyte from the Ridin Pine Show Podcast. Darcy, as a Sens fan, how are you doing?
It was tough. Lot of expletives and loud words, and my wife banished me to the basement, and I had to put the champagne away, that's for sure. It was tough to watch.
Are we going to have to send a wellness check over to your place in the upcoming days, or you're going to be all right here?
I am still flushed. The blood rushed to my head, and I was I can't say that I'm very surprised. And, the third and fifth overall pick, if you told me that when we traded Erik Karlsson to San Jose and we'd get their pick and we ended up getting a fifth and third overall, I would have been perfectly happy with that. So, and in this draft class, how loaded it is, I really should be happy. But, having the second and third best pick, or best chances to get the pick, and falling to fifth and third it's tough to watch.
Yeah. Does it hurt maybe even a little bit more that we still don't even know who's picking number one, right? Like, it's going to end up being the playoff team.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of miffs me a little bit is that those cards are just stacked there. And it's like, any conspiracy theorist, why even leave it open to us thinking that, this is what could possibly happen? This is good for the NHL in a sense where they don't know. So they had this night tonight to sort of refresh people's minds about the NHL. And now they get to have another draft lottery, basically, of the 8 teams that get, bounced out of the play-in round. And you look at some of those teams, Toronto doesn't have their pick. So if they lose to Pittsburgh, they don't get to pick that. But teams like, if Pittsburgh loses with the 5th best overall points percentage right now in the league, if they lose to Montreal, then they could essentially have they have a 12.5% chance to get the first overall pick.
Yeah. Well, and as a Sens fan too, like, it's got to irk you that, it could be going to Montreal, and it actually could still be going to Toronto, because Toronto's pick to Carolina was top 10 protected.
I didn't know it was top 10 protected. Okay.
Yeah. So the Patrick Marleau deal, if Toronto ends up getting bounced in the first round, it just gets kicked over to next year's draft there.
I forgot that it was top 10, and that's what I got excited for 1 second, because I started being a Florida Panther fan all of a sudden. I said, Florida's going to play the Islanders. We get the first pick, and then I remembered that was lottery protected from the New York Islanders. So if they get it, they're going to give us 2021's pick, and that'll probably be somewhere in the 20s, because right now they're 21st. So,
well, and you already mentioned it, but like, it is fishy, right? Like, this is, like you say, it's not the ping pong ball machine that's shooting stuff out. Like, it's nothing live. You just got a bunch of cards stacked there, right? all this week, you've got Panarin, you've got a bunch of the team players on teams that are probably going to lose in the first round, saying like, why am I putting my health at risk? Why bother showing up? Da, 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 da,
Yeah.
right? Why should we even field a team? Well, now you might want to field a team and just lose because you got a chance at number 1 overall pick, right? They're going to dominate the news cycle because there's nothing else going on here. And like you said, they've created a second event out of nothing now, right? So
basically have at 12.5%. That's better than the third pick generally. Like the team in third place has what, 11.5%. So all of these 8 teams that lose this play-in series, they actually have a better percent chance to win the first overall pick than they would have had they finished third last.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Wow, wild night in the NHL.
I feel, for some reason, I just feel Montreal Canadiens are going to get this guy. I just feel it.
You're gonna get the French Canadian going to the.
And my co-host John Harper, as we know, diehard Habs fan. I may have to quit the podcast.
Yeah. I don't know how you could live with that every single day, because every single episode he'd be bringing it up.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, you might have already answered it just in sort of how sullen you are here, but let's get to the winners and the losers tonight.
Sure.
Right? Like, who's the biggest winner has to be whoever ends up winning out of the eliminated playoff teams.
Yeah, I was really thinking. I really thought that the Kings, once they got moved into the top 3 there, I thought, looking at Luc Robitaille and Rob Blake, and I really thought the pick was going there, and I could see Lafreniere in a Kings uniform, and that would be a good fit. So I really, really thought that. I hated the fact that it came to this team. So obviously, yes, that team is going to be the biggest winner. They're drafting not Crosby, not McDavid, but maybe Nathan McKinnon, like somebody along those lines, So it's not the generational talent quite like McDavid is, but he's going to be step in, top line, left winger, and he's going to be playing right away, and he's going to be top 20 in league scoring, maybe top 30 in his rookie season.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean that one's a pretty open and shut case there. What about biggest loser? Right? Is it Ottawa or my sort of take is you got to feel for Detroit, right?
Yeah.
Falling all the way to number 4, and they had an abysmal season.
They were the Colorado Avalanche of 3 years ago. They were on pace for something like 49 points. They were looking just horrible. So. Yeah, I really did also before the draft. I thought Detroit was probably going to win that, and Stevie Y is going to have Alexis Lafreniere, and it'd be pretty cool to see him. Now, him playing with Zadina and those guys, and Larkin being the center, and that would be a dynamite line, right? So I thought that was going to happen, but obviously, I just wish it was the ping pong ball style or something that showed to us all that it was random. I'm going to have to. Just trust that the integrity of the league is there, and that's how it was a random draw, and it probably was. But why even leave these doors open why even leave these questions for us, to ask? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, does anyone other than Lafreniere go number 1, or is it an absolute lock? What are your thoughts here?
There was a guy, and I couldn't find his article because I think they probably banished it from the internet, who said that Byfield was going to go first overall, and he's sticking with his guns. And I read it a few days ago. I just skimmed over it, and I was trying to find it all day today. I cannot find who it is. I mean, no, I don't think there's any chance you can pass up on Lafreniere, Byfield, or I don't even know how to say it, Tim Stützle.
We'll go with that. Kind of like a strudel, Stutzel, I think, is how you say it there.
He's German, right? So it's a Stutzel. But no, I thought I don't think so. I mean, you look at a guy like Lafreniere's been in Lafreniere's been in the league for 3 years in the queue now. He's got over 100 points in the last 2 seasons and 60 games. Guy's just unbelievable. World Juniors, he was awesome. I mean, it was so fun to watch the World Juniors this year. His hands on some of those goals were just incredible, second to none. And Byfield, really, I mean, I think he's going to be one of those guys that develops in a couple of years. He'll step into the NHL right away, but I think it'll take a couple of years before you really see how good this guy is. Being that age and that tall and that big, you got to grow still into your body. So he's more of a guy I see really hitting a peak at 22, 23 type thing versus I think Lafreniere could go in there right away and just light it up. So no, I don't think any team wouldn't pick him, but it'll be interesting to see. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. He's a lock. You got back-to-back Player of the Year in the CHL. He's got God knows how many points in his career. It's I think that if anyone did take someone other than Lafreniere, number one, that GM is putting his job on the line immediately, right? And he better get instant payoff of whoever he does take there. So he's the safest pick. He's gonna go number one. Now the $1 million question is, which of these playoff eliminated teams is going to get the right to draft him number one?
I mean, the good thing is I'm very intrigued still, and I'll obviously watch phase 2. So for the NHL, this is a home run. For other people, the journalists are saying this is a nightmare for the NHL, but I really don't agree with them. I think this is exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
Maybe not Lafreniere, but at least one of those teams selecting in the top 3 is what they wanted, because now there's still this has never happened before. Draft lottery, we always know where teams are picking. And now we still have to wait till a potential play-in series. And I don't know where these hub cities are going to be, but if you're looking at what's going on today in the US with the coronavirus, it's getting right out of hand again with the numbers. So it's going to be very interesting to see if any of these leagues are able to restart. NBA, MLB, NHL, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, I was actually more so even surprised that they ruled Vancouver out as a potential hub city, because to be honest with you, the way the cases are going in some of these potential cities, it almost makes more sense to have both hub cities in Canada.
Yeah, I would think so. And they're talking about Toronto now. I guess they did rule out Vancouver, but Toronto seems to be a very big candidate, and that's great. I mean, they're still, I believe they just got out of lockdown a couple of days ago, or they entered phase 2 of the opening back up the economy and everything, whatever you want to call it. But to consider Toronto, where Ontario seems to be, other than Montreal, but Ontario seems to be the real hot spot in terms of COVID throughout the whole thing. I just found it very weird that it's not going to be in Vancouver, or think of something like Edmonton, or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think they're probably going to sort of force feed Vegas down our throats as one of the hub cities, just with all the built-in infrastructure. They'll probably just get 2 of the hotels right around the arena there, just say all the NHL players are here, away you go type thing, right? So, but yeah, we're in unprecedented times, and the Lord knows what this first round of the play-ins are even going to look like. But fingers crossed.
It'll be fun, and you know what? I think a lot of people hate the idea of hockey in July and August and all that stuff. I love it. I've got a projector in the backyard. It's going to be 30-degree weather. It's going to be awesome to watch some hockey in that time of year. I don't really care when it is, to be honest with you. So I'm really hoping it happens, but obviously not at risking any of the players' health and safety and stuff like that. They wouldn't make sense. And the way things are looking in the past few days, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, well, there's always a plus to watching a cold weather sport in a hot environment with a beer, as opposed to middle of February and it's 30 below outside. And last thing you want to do is see people skate around on ice.
Yeah, because I mean, even this year, if the Cup final went early June, it was still pretty cold. So it'll be nice if we can watch the Cup final in the backyard. And well, who knows when it'll be? September maybe. Should still be pretty good weather.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, right. It all depends on if they have a big shutdown or something midstream as well too. So
yeah,
lots of variables. So
absolutely.
I mean, so Lafreniere, we both agree he's going number one, right?
Yeah.
Now the debate is, you're Los Angeles. Who are you taking at number 2? Is it going to be Byfield? Is it going to be Stützle? Are you going off the board with someone else? Is it a defenseman?
I think that the next 2 picks are going to be as unanimous as Lafreniere being number 1. And I think it's going to be Byfield and Stützle. And I think it's funny because I didn't really pay that much attention to Tim Stützle this year. I've watched a lot of highlights recently in the last few weeks, and I've seen what he did as a 17-year-old in the German league, which is very impressive, because if you rank the leagues in order of the top 10, the OHL falls at number 10, whereas the German league is number 7. they're playing against grown men out there. I looked at his roster. There's, most of the guys in their late 20s and some guys 35, and like he's playing against men,
Yeah.
and he had a heck of a year. He's 35 points in 41 games, I believe, and so they're comparing him to a Mitch Marner type player.
Yeah.
And his skating apparently is what the 10 on 10 is. And so his upside for what Bob McKenzie is, the scouts that Bob McKenzie is talking to, apparently his upside seems to be higher than Byfield, which I don't know. For me, I think I would like a 6'4", 215 franchise center guy who I know in a few years is just going to be an absolute stud. For myself, if I were LA, I think I'd go with Byfield. But I don't think whoever picks either, it's going to be a bad pick. I don't think either of those guys are busts by any stretch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that is sort of the silver lining as a Sens fan there too, is right. You're getting one of the top 3 consensus guys, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just going to be which one is it based on who selects what in front of you there. But
right.
like you say, you can't really go wrong with either. I kind of lean more towards, Stutzel myself there, because he himself is 6'1", and once he starts filling out a little bit as well too there, he'll definitely be a force out there. And like you say, playing against grown men is a world of difference playing against, 18, 19-year-old guys.
Yeah,
right?
No question.
So he's going to step in. He's going to be ready. I think Byfield will probably be more of that, prototypical power forward, probably a little bit more of a goal scorer. Stutzel seems to be more of a, playmaker, mostly assists and whatnot, but he's got speed to burn, right? So whoever Ottawa ends up with at number 3, they're going to be happy.
If Byfield slides down to 3, I'll be very happy. And I think the Sens' anxiety of just getting the franchise back on track, it may be a tough couple of years for them, for people that aren't patient and know how these type of players need time to develop. You talk to the run-of-the-mill fan, they don't understand that. If the guy's not putting up 50 goals in his rookie season, there's something wrong with the pick, right? So I'd be nervous to get him, because I think Stutzel, I agree with you, I think he's more NHL ready today. But I really don't see a downside in either of those guys in the future. So it'll be fun to – I'm happy with either of those 2 guys.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, right? Is like wherever he ends up, whether it's Ottawa or LA, there, let's hope they take their time with him and they are patient. They don't sort of rush him, right? Because if let's say he does fall to Ottawa, they've at least sort of got a blueprint, right? Because they're sort of working through that with Logan Brown right now, of this big giant center who maybe they rushed him up there a little bit early, but now is starting to find his stride in the AHL a little bit. So they've at least got a roadmap for that now. Right.
And they also have some experience too with how to blow a great prospect in terms of Curtis Lazar, right? I mean, they had him, and he was I went and watched him in the World Juniors in 2015 when he was playing with Connor McDavid, and he was one of the best players other than McDavid. He was the best player on Team Canada, him, Domi, and McDavid. But and he came into Ottawa, and he wasn't ready for the NHL yet. And we, after that World Juniors, myself included, thought this guy was an absolute stud. And it just goes to show you what confidence can do to a kid that age also. And when you start hearing it in a hockey town where the media is pretty tough and the fans are tough, I think giving him a couple more years, even another year down in the minors, Curtis Lazar would be an everyday NHLer. I mean, he's still playing. I think he's in Buffalo now, but he's not the guy that we thought he was, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. He never developed that scoring touch at that next level in the NHL, right?
Yeah.
So, there's only so much you can expect out of him when you take a guy who's used to being a scorer his whole life and essentially reduce him to a third-line grinder, shutdown sort of role.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's what happened to me in Major Adam. Coach never gave me a shot.
Yeah. If only Coach had believed in you back then, you'd be in the show right now. Eh?
That's right.
So, I mean, we've got some interesting prospects coming up this year, right? So you've got the big 3. You got quite a few defensemen that are going to be anchoring blue lines for the next 10 plus years there, right? But you've also got a pretty interesting prospect, which for the first time since I can't even remember the last time, like Fleury, Price, maybe, you've actually got a consensus top 10 pick, bona fide blue chip goalie prospect coming in here in the Russian Askarov there. Do you see anyone now, even knowing that Buffalo is picking at number 8, making that reach and realizing like, okay, we thought we were getting a top 3 guy, not there. We're maybe good on the blue line. Let's take a chance on this and see if we can turn it around like a Binnington did for St. Louis or something like that. Or do you see him sort of falling in that, 10 to 15 range there?
I looked back from the draft since 2010 and looked at some of the highest drafted goalies. And, the highest drafted goalie was number 11 from Dallas. And I can't even remember who it was. He ended up, it was Jack Campbell. You're right. Yeah, Jack Campbell. Ended up playing 64 games or something like that in the NHL. Other than that, the next highest drafted goalie was Andrei Vasilevsky, and I was at 17. So it's just, other than the price and the Marc-Andre Fleury, like you mentioned, it's not very common that a team would do that in the top 10 because goalies are just so unpredictable. You mentioned the most unpredictable, Jordan Binnington, guy who, had no business doing what he did, and now he's a legitimate number 1 goalie. So I don't know. I think if any teams were to do it, it might be New Jersey or Buffalo, maybe. But I think and maybe in another year this would happen, but I think the top 10 is just so loaded this year that I don't know if a team's going to go off the board like that, or not off the board, but I don't know if they're going to do that to pick him. But those would be the 2 teams. So I think Jersey's picking 7 and Buffalo 8.
Yeah.
He could go in that range, but my guess would be 10 to 13 sort of thing.
Yeah, that tends to be where I'm sort of leaning as well too. Is the maybe 10 to 12 range there, as far as a team that just gets eliminated from the qualifying round might have realized like, okay, the missing key ingredient here was a goalie, so let's go out and fix that right away. But yeah, like you were saying, I mean, you look at even Buffalo and New Jersey, and Buffalo, they've got Linus Ullmark. He's young. He's having probably the best year of his career, but is he for real, or is it just a flash in the pan? Kind of same thing with New Jersey there too, where Schneider's probably done at this point, but Mackenzie Blackwood, again, is this what you're going to get for the next 5 years out of him, or is this the best it's ever going to get and it's all downhill from here? Right? Is it a Hamburglar type thing, and then you never hear from the kid again? Right?
That was fun. That was a fun run. I'll remember that. The Hamburger run, that was wild. The 25 3-1 to make it in or something like that. That was fun to watch.
Speaking of Curtis Lazar, wasn't it him that ate the cheeseburger that got thrown on the ice?
It was. That's hilarious. That's a good point.
But yeah, I mean, my only one that I could have seen as a lottery team picking was if Detroit completely fell off the map and got shafted with a really late pick there, but I think they could only follow a certain number of spots.
They fell as far as they could.
Yeah, so I mean,
they couldn't go any less than 4.
Yeah, so they were the only ones, because you look at them, Bernier and Howard. Howard's 36 years old. Jonathan Bernier is 31. Are either of them really number 1 goalies anymore? Probably not.
No.
Right? But I mean, are you taking a goalie at 4 overall? Probably not. So
you know what? The team that could do that, because they love to pick off the board with players that are way later than they should be, is the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah. So going at number 5, there you go.
It honestly could be, when we already have 7 goalies in our system right now. Like, there's not enough spaces in our ECHL team for the goalies we've drafted and picked up in the last few years from the NCAA.
That's one way of building a team, right? Is that if you draft 100 of one position, maybe one of them's going to pan out, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, let's play the sort of what if game here. Right? Yeah. Again, we still don't know where any of these guys are going, and a lot can still happen on draft day, and yada, 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 right? But aside from a bona fide lock, like, the top 3, who's a dark horse that you've got that you think is going to, step in and make that immediate impact on the next level?
He's not much of a dark horse, but he is ranked lower than Jamie Drysdale, and it's Sanderson. I really, truly think that Jake Sanderson's going to be able to step in and have a better long-term career. A lot of the scouts actually had him ranked higher than Drysdale, but Drysdale got the number 5. So I think Jake Sanderson would be someone, if we get Byfield, I'd like to take Sanderson as number 5 and skip over Drysdale. I think a lot of people think that's not the right pick, but this kid's unreal, and he's coming from the U.S. development team, and we know what type of players they're pumping out over the last 5 years. So it's not far down. I look down the list. I mean, you really have to dig if you're looking into your 15 onwards and really have to look in. And I'm sure there's going to be a guy in there who, in the late top round, there always is. There's going to be a guy there, but to predict that's nearly impossible. That's why they go 25th overall, right? So, but I think in the top 10, I think Jake Sanderson's probably the best defenseman there, even though Drysdale's got the nod for now.
Yeah. Well, I've got two. So I've got one sort of similar to what you just said there, not ranked super, super high there. And then I've got a real dark horse for you here. So I'll start with the more common one there. Marco Rossi, right? 120 points in 56 games with the Ottawa 67s this past year. 39 goals, He's a little guy. He's 5'9", right? But it's a speed game now, right?
Yes.
You don't need to be the 6'4", prototypical, Chris Pronger going into the corners with your elbows up type player to make it in the league anymore. So my sort of comparable for him is I kind of see him as like an Alex DeBrincat, speed for days. You can plug him in, maybe even work on the second power play unit, even as a rookie, depending on where he goes, obviously.
Right.
He's going to a high-end team that's already pretty solid there. He might not be getting the minutes that he needs, but that being said, I think he's one that I wouldn't be shocked at all to hear his name in the Calder conversation, when it does come to his time.
Do you see maybe a 4 spot Detroit taking him?
I could see that because, you look at their roster, the goals have to come from somewhere, right? Outside of Larkin and, Zadina was up and down this year too. I think he's got only 19 games or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Right. So he's hopefully, by next year ready, but what's their number one line?
Yeah, it's Larkin, Zadina, and right now it's
Rossi, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rossi would be a good fit. So I'm not even sure who, yeah, I mean, it's probably Bertuzzi right now. It's their top would be Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Zadina right now if it were to go that way.
Yeah. So I mean, I can see him probably going, like you say, number 4, but I think he's not even ranked in the top 5 though, is he?
No, I don't think so. Not in Bob's list. I think Bob's got him at 7 or something. Let's see where he is. 7, yeah.
Yeah. So again, not a super dark horse, but I think he's going to go higher than 7, and I think he'll have an impact. My super dark horse, who is currently ranked 60th overall in the
here we go, Kyle.
So I'm going with Luke Tuck. So this is Alex Tuck of the Vegas Golden Knights' younger brother. He's committed to Boston University. He's also part of the U.S. development team there. He's got speed for days. I think he's going to be a guy who obviously, committing to the collegiate level, he's not coming into the league next year. He's going to go the NCAA route. But when he does get into the league, probably will have, just based on family pedigree alone, right? He's probably going to get a shot and actually get a crack at an NHL roster, which is, when you're talking about 60th overall rankings, 90% of those guys never even get a sniff at an actual NHL game, right? They might get invited to training camps. So I think that's a guy who, maybe I put his ceiling at a 20-goal season type thing. But
a solid third liner on a great team, second liner on a mediocre team type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'm going with my true dark horse overall pick there. So
I like that. I didn't even see him in the draft. I didn't know that was Alex Tuck's brother. I like the thought process there.
Yeah.
Generally, when you have the one brother in the NHL, you get some you learn from him, and you've been playing your whole life against him, and he's probably always beat you. So you've got a little extra motivation as a younger brother.
Yeah. Well, you got to scroll pretty far down the rankings to find him there. So I don't blame you for not even knowing that he was in the draft.
Yeah, I did not.
Yeah. So, let's talk. Some of the lottery teams who really got screwed here, right? Detroit. Like you say, there's so many holes on their team right now.
Yeah.
Do you go forward? Do you go defenseman? How do you try and turn that franchise around?
I mean, I think it's either I like the Rossi pick or the Drysdale or Sanderson. It's one of those guys that Stevie Y's got to be thinking about because, yeah, you're right. Looking at their depth chart right now, who. It's embarrassing. I can't tell you how many NHL games. I don't even know who their top D man pairing is right now. I
Yeah.
can't even tell you.
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, the holes that they have are not just going to be fixed with one guy. I mean, Lafreniere would have been a nice boost, but that's putting McDavid on the Oilers type of thing. It's not going to be you need your Draisaitl's, you need other guys there too, and there's just nobody right now. I mean, Dylan Larkin's incredible. Zadina has a high ceiling for sure, but I don't know. I think if I were Stevie Y, I'd probably be looking at the Rossi or one of those 2D for sure.
Yeah, like I'm even going through their roster right now, and like, how many NHL caliber players do they even really have? Right? Like, there's a few players on there that I genuinely didn't even know were still in the league. Right? Like, and some of them I've just never even heard of at all. Right? So it's
Kanye's still there.
Yeah, a bunch of their AHL players, but like, yeah, like. You got to start building it from somewhere, and I mean,
he's got a long road there. That's for sure. They've got a long road. I think they're going to be in this position again for the next couple of years. I can't see Ottawa really climbing much, even with the 3rd and 5th. I can't see them being. I don't see them being a playoff team next year. If the 5th overall is even NHL ready, I think 3rd will be, but 5th probably plays another year somewhere else.
Yeah.
So. I could see Ottawa, Detroit. I could see a lot of these teams being in a similar position. You know, Leafs were here. My friend Scott was living through the draft lottery for 5 years until they got Matthews, you know, and that really does turn your franchise around. Yeah. It's just so wild to think. And it's like it hasn't even been fully digested because it only happened an hour ago. A team like Pittsburgh, or there's so many teams that I can count that have a chance at this first overall pick now that in any other year would not even be like it wouldn't even be considered that they have a chance. Yeah. Like not even close.
Oh yeah. You could have a legitimate Stanley Cup contender ending
that
up with
gets bounced in a play-in round in a best 3 of 5. Anything can really happen. Yeah. We saw that last year when Columbus swept Tampa Bay, who had the best regular season in 20, 30 years, right? So I mean, anything can happen in these play-in series. Well, not these; we've never had them, but in this type of 5-game series, anything can happen.
Yeah.
And one of these loaded teams, Montreal, if Carey Price stands on his head and Pittsburgh gets first overall pick, I will throw up.
Yeah. Well, number one, like, let's look at this. Like, could you imagine a power play unit that would have Crosby, Malkin, and Lafreniere?
No.
Like, but and then also just even as a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, like, how spoiled do you have to be to have the Lemieux Jagger years, and then Lemieux overlaps with Crosby, then you got the Crosby Malkin years, and then you would have Lafreniere overlapping with Crosby, and like it's just an embarrassment of riches from the early '80s all the way through till God knows when, right? Like,
and Lemieux, I mean. They were playing Pittsburgh in 1983. Were playing a game against New Jersey, and whoever lost that game got the first overall pick. That's how it worked. And I think it might have been. I would love to watch that game because the players in it were told to lose, and it was like because they knew Lemieux was the first overall pick. And I mean, we could be talking about the New Jersey Devils right now, like this, if they lost that game that night, which is crazy to think.
Well, how wild would it be that the 2 years where it goes into this weird, funky draft lottery that Pittsburgh would end up winning it, right?
Yeah.
It was what, the lockout year, which resulted in Pittsburgh winning the random ping pong balls, and now COVID, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself here and just automatically assume Pittsburgh's going to win it here, but I mean, like,
it's going to be. I mean, Montreal's got a tall task just to beat them alone I mean, you put Carey Price, and I'll take him almost over anybody. There's not many goalies. There's maybe 3 goalies in the league that I might put ahead of him right now in those type of games. So, I don't know, rested, and Pittsburgh could be in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how many years away do we think now? Ottawa's got this plethora of draft picks, right? We
Yeah.
haven't even talked really about the fact that they've still got the Islanders pick, which
Yep.
unless the Islanders happen to end up winning it this year, they'll probably give it up this year, I would assume. And
Yeah, the only way the Islanders don't give it up this year is if they win that lottery, because it's lottery protected. One, two,
it's
three.
not
That
top 10 protected. It's
no,
lottery.
only top three. So
Okay.
the best case scenario, based on what my understanding is that of the 8 teams that don't make it in the play-in, they have a 12.5% chance to win. Then it will fall in order of lowest point percentage and up. So if we did that with the Islanders, I mean, so many teams would have to lose in order for us to even get a top. The highest we could get is 10, and that's if several other teams with lower points percentage win the play-in series, which probably isn't going to happen. So we're probably realistically looking at if they lose the first round again, we're probably looking at more of like a 14-15 pick.
So you take an Askarov then?
I mean, if he's still on the board, you might, but I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot of prospects there. I hope with Hoberg and Gustafsson, I think hopefully one of those guys can really pan out. And who knows, man?
Yeah. So how many years away do we think the never-ending Ottawa Senators rebuild is now? Are we 2 years out? You already said probably not this season, even if they do get Stützle or Byfield or something like that, who can sort of step in right away. Probably still not a playoff team next year. Is it realistic for 2022? We're sort of looking.
Maybe not 2022, but I mean, it all really depends on how much. What's our capability of keeping the players in Ottawa? I mean, Shabbat signed, that was a huge vote of confidence for Sens fans and showing that, that's kind of trending in the right direction. Next one up is Tkachuk, and we need to sign him. Just get him signed. Show us that players are willing to stay, because through all of the players leaving and everything, like the only person I've ever really been mad at as a Sens fan, like really like hateful, was Alexei Yashin. Other than that, it's been either traded away. Like Hossa was my favorite player, but he was traded for Heatley. And Spezza, whatever. But I mean, with Carlson, with Mark Stone, with those guys, you can't blame them. I mean, I wouldn't want to play here either. It's just we've had a really crazy hands-on owner, which is not what you should have. You hire your positions to run your hockey team, and you're the money, and just enjoy the ride. That's it. But even tonight, I don't know if you noticed this. I don't know if you were watching right before they were showing all the GMs, and Melnick had to be in the frame talking to and he was making sure he was on camera and stuff. And it's just like, go away, man. Like, stop meddling so much. So if we're able to sign the players, I think 2022, 23, we might see a playoff berth, and then who knows. But I could see another tough year, sort of high draft pick. We've got a lot of draft picks now, which you can't have 65 players on your roster. So I hope they trade them for some better picks, but we'll see. I'd say 2021, 3 seasons we'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's a hypothetical for you. Let's say, Islanders do not win the first overall pick. It's another playoff team.
Yeah.
And, they end up in the 12, 13, 14 range there.
Yeah.
Would you, as a Sens fan, and if you were the GM here, would you package 3, 5, and 14 for number 1?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You're going quantity over quality here.
I don't even think I'd package 3, 5 for 1.
Really?
Not in this draft. In maybe every other draft except for 2015 in the last 10 years. 2015, I probably wouldn't have done it. And this year, I don't think I would even let 3 and 5 go for Lafreniere.
Yeah.
Wow. I know he's going to be incredible, but I'd rather have a shot at 2 top-tier guys that will be a level below him, but not, nothing crazy. I'd rather have a little bit more quantity in that respect. I knew that question was coming, and I thought about it for a long time, and I went back and forth, but at the end, no. I think if you can get these guys, and if they pan out to be what they're projected, then I think, If it was McDavid, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go back here. Who was the last number 5 overall pick? Was it Brian Lee?
Oh, for the Sens, I think we picked Brian
Sens.
Lee 9th.
Oh, he was
We
9th.
picked
Okay. All right.
Brian Lee was
Oh,
9th.
that was
We
6th.
did pick Mika Zibanejad 6. And then I don't know really what we've had. We had Spezza number 2. We had Chris Phillips 1 and Dag 1.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if Lafreniere falls in the same type of company as Alexander Dag?
Well, you know what? I said it
Snap.
earlier today. 27 years to the day today is when the Senators drafted Dag first overall. So
He had a good rookie season. I think he put up somewhere in the 60-point range in his rookie season. Dag had a good, and then he just fell off a cliff.
well, I mean, and you and I have had this conversation before here too, right? But hindsight's 2020, and it's almost comical to sort of crap on the Dag pick. But if you were the GM at that time, like he's lighting up the league, he's the consensus number 1 overall. Like you probably would have been fired if you didn't take it number 1, right?
Yeah,
But,
I mean, he was. There was a Beckett, the trading card magazine. Beckett, you remember that?
oh yeah,
I'm sure it's still around, but I don't have cards anymore, so I haven't seen one in about 20 years. But I still have and I'll dig it up somewhere, but it's a front cover. It's a black cover with Dag on the front with underneath in red saying the next one with a question mark. That's how touted he was. I mean, he was breaking Lemieux's records in junior. I think he had 165 or 170 points 2 years straight. I mean, there was a no-brainer. Yeah. So Nail Yakupov was a huge bust. I mean, they happen, right? I mean, you never hope for that, and I loved watching Lafreniere, and I think it's a very, very slim chance that he is a bust. But, I mean, you never know. It could happen. You look at the top 5 players in every draft, none of those top 5, or one of those guys was not the player he was meant to be.
Yeah.
In every year.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So last question before we let you get out of here tonight there. So you already said Sanderson's sort of your dark horse there, but who is the number 1 defensive prospect in this draft here in your mind? Are you going with Drysdale, or are you going off the board, or?
No, I'll stick with Sanderson.
You're going to stick with Sanderson.
I like his game. I watched a lot of what he's doing. He's a big body, good puck moving defenseman. I think Drysdale is, he's quicker. He's got better skating, and he's more offensive minded, which is, that's how you win the Norris Trophy, is by scoring a lot of points. It's not being the best defenseman anymore. So, I mean, Drysdale may have more Norrises, but I think Sanderson's going to be the top defenseman out of this class, and I think he may go higher than what he's projected for right now.
Yeah. So he might not be the sexy pick, but he's he's what you need to win, right? Like,
I think so. What do you think? Are you going Drysdale, or you think someone else?
I'm probably going Drysdale, but you make a good point too, right? Like you guys just retired a number there in Chris Phillips, and right, like he had a whole career of being that steady, usually number 1 pairing defenseman, and every team's got them, and the ones that stick out are the Brent Burns and the Carlsons of the world, and the ones that are scoring the points, but.
John Carlson's.
I mean, they're only able to do that because they've got, like a Mark Mathot who's cleaning up the mess, allowing Carlson to hop into the rushes and all of that, right? So,
definitely,
like you say, it might not be a sexy pick, but he'll be a blue liner for many years for sure.
A Mark-Edward Vlasic type of player, where it's let Brent Burns do whatever he wants and Vlasic will clean it up back. I mean, that's the type of guy I'm thinking he's going to be.
Yeah. Well, and that's sort of the difference right there between an NHL GM and the armchair GMs.
For sure.
They always say, like, why is Vlasic on Team Canada for the Olympics here? And it's like, well, in order to give all of these guys the freedom to do whatever the heck they want, someone's still got to be between Luongo or Price or whoever the goalie of the day was there, and
for sure
actually stopping stuff. So
for sure.
All right. Well,
you're going to be watching. You're going to be watching Phase 2.
Oh, I'll be watching Phase 2. I am so starved for sports at this point that aren't South Korean baseball that you have to wake up at 3 a.m. for. And although I do like the fact that they've got the stuffed animals in the stands and all the cardboard cutouts for
There's been a couple of bets laid down on some Korean baseball leagues, I'll tell you that, which have never happened before. So
yeah.
My account is it's seeing some weird action lately.
Yeah. Betting on Turkish soccer games.
Exactly.
There you go.
I'm starved too, man. I'm hoping so much to get back to watching some hockey. Again, not at the expense of anybody's safety and stuff. But if they can do this properly, if they can bubble players, if they can do the testing, and oh man, I would just love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, where can people find you or learn more about the Ridin Pine Show or any of that stuff there?
Yeah, we're a hockey podcast. Two of us. We're Ridin Pine Show, like you said. You can find us on Twitter at Ridin Pine Show with no G, so Ridin Pine. And same thing, ridinpine@gmail.com if you ever want to send some suggestions for topics and stuff like that. And we're where you find your podcast. So not Spotify yet, like Joe Rogan. We're working our way up there. But anywhere you find your podcast, you can look us up. And we usually do a weekly one. We took a little COVID break like everybody else because we like to talk about relevant hockey things and not what else is going on in our lives because no one cares. So, so yeah, you can find us there anytime. And we usually Thursday night, so Friday morning, we usually have a new episode out. We're going to start again next week.
Right on. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time for joining us today. We appreciate it as always. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I guess we'll touch base after the second draft lottery that's apparently now going to take place.
Can't wait. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Right on. And that's a wrap for another episode of the Dyne Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Massive thank you goes to Darcy Whyte from the Ridin Pine Show podcast for coming in and discussing and breaking down what was a very interesting evening in the NHL. Obviously not the result that quite a few franchises were hoping for, but at the end of the day, it's going to make for interesting first round of the playoffs and definitely going to be a very interesting second lottery, which is now going to be taking place as well too. For those that haven't already, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Also got various social media channels that you can hit us up on as well too. Love to connect with you guys wherever is easiest for you. Aside from that, we've got some great episodes coming up in the next week or so with some phenomenal guests, so be sure to tune in. Stay safe, everyone. Take care.